This Friday's stream, I should have set this up beforehand, so I'll just do it right now. I just want to make sure that if there's any live on the chat, that for you. Boom. My name is Tara. If we haven't met already, I'm a Christian wife, homeschool mom of 10 children with one more on the way. And today I'm so excited to talk to you about a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I've never actually spoken publicly with anybody. A professional mom mindset. In me going from scared and confused and completely overwhelmed and unprepared for motherhood to completely flipping these scripts in my head that were just playing on automatic. I didn't even know they were there. They were leading me to a super low view of motherhood, and incredibly difficult for me to really embrace children with any sense of joy or confidence at all. So today by sharing a little bit of my personal story that I've thought to talk about with anybody before. So here it is to be a blessing to you, to help you embrace the blessing of children with more joy and more confidence wherever you're at in your motherhood journey. So like I said, I was not prepared for motherhood, not knocking my mom. I'm just being honest. I take inventory of my life. And as I became a new mom in my mid-20s, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. How to change a diaper. Totally did not know how to do that. And I certainly did not know how to raise children, communicate with children. My entire concept of how to be a mom, was like from TV. I mean, my mom was around till we were about 11, but I went to school all day. I went to Catholic school, actually, and then off to public. I never really saw motherhood. It was an idea, but how do you do that? There's books available and stuff, but like there's a big difference between theory and practice, right? So I'm really in my motherhood, and I had crossed the bridge of fear about embracing the blessing. But when I became, I crossed that bridge of fear, and now I was contending with all the logistics of full-time, stay-at-home, big family motherhood, knowing that more than likely, God willing, the next 20, 25 years of my life were going to be primarily centered from home, as I welcomed children approximately every 2 years. Now, most of you know, I'm expecting number 11. So, primarily my life. And I've had to make major adjustments in my head, in my heart, in my home to be able to welcome those children without resenting them, without resenting God, and then also figuring out how to make it all work in a really practical day-to-day sense. So I became a Christian, and I understand that I was completely saved in that moment. The fancy word for it is justification, right? I was totally saved, and nothing could unsave me. That's my perspective and understanding that I was justified. I was legally made right before God through no merit of my own, but through the merit of Jesus dying on the place. That being said, my head and all the patterns of and the beliefs I had in my heart, they didn't instantly just like a wind came through and just suddenly I thought like a Christian and I lived like a Christian. There's a whole process, a lifelong process that I've since learned is called sanctification that began at that moment of Jim. And so sanctification, if you haven't heard of it before, is just, it's the lifelong process of God changing me, changing his people, Christians, from the inside out, one piece at a time. Why didn't you deal with this in my 20s? It's a mystery to me with the timing of these things. I trust God knows the right time, right? He says in his word, he makes all things beautiful in his time. And there is a time for everything under heaven. And sometimes that process of change, I just maybe wasn't ready to go there. I just wasn't ready to deal with my low view of motherhood or my fears about staying or homeschooling or whatever it was. So why did it take that amount of time? I'm not going to really worry too much about that. Here's what happened. So I dealt with those fears by God's grace, but I had about motherhood. I didn't want to think about motherhood, much less how to do it. And then when I had 3, when we started to think about schools here, and kids start kindergarten and grade when they're 4. So you really need to register them, in the summer before the year they're going to turn 4. That's probably how it works in the States if you're watching from here as well. So I had to really quickly, as I'm pregnant with number 4 at the time, be like, are we sending our daughter to school? Are we doing this? I don't know. Long story short, we chose to homeschool, and which was like terrifying to me because I went into that kicking and screaming, and I'll share that fun story another day. what I want to talk about is that was a turning point for me, as other contemporaries, other moms who were about my age, whose kids were about the same age as my kids, were doing one of two things, probably actually both things at the same time. They weren't having any more kids. It was like, whew, good thing that's over. And I say that with love, not like a harsh judgment. I'm just telling you how it was. And the second thing they were doing was sending their kids to school. And they were just like ticking them off. They're like, one down, maybe one or two left to go. Because the average in North America is like less than the replacement level for children, right? It's like average 1 to 2. It's extremely rare to see a family, especially out in public, with 4 or more children. So my friends, people I'd hang out with at the park or whatever, were sending their kids to school. And I'm starting to feel sorry for myself, even though I've embraced the blessing of children. And I have a heart to do that with joy and confidence. I started to feel really sorry for myself when their little kids go off to school. And I'm just going to be real, like there's a baby aspect to kindergarten. Right? At least that's how I looked at it. I was like, wouldn't it be nice to send my kids to an all-day babysitting service so I could just be at home with the littles and get so much done? Anyway, I had a nice little pity party for I don't know how long, couple of weeks, couple of months. And I started to kind of hit this fork in the road where I'm like, is this going to be the rest of my life? Sit here quietly resenting stay-at-home motherhood? My heart kind of angry at God, angry at my husband, and just generally angry. I was like, where's that going to go? Like eventually that kind of brewing resentment and bitterness is gonna it's gonna change me. It's gonna rot inside of me, right? And it's gonna fester and come out, and probably on the kids, right? In the quietness of the home where there's really nobody like me, and check my attitude and call me out if I'm behaving with innocent kids. So I was like, this is a warning. I need to deal with this pity. I need to settle this. If I've committed to welcome the blessing of children, to be a full-time stay-at-home mom, I need to settle this now. So I got real with God, and I just said, okay, what's it going to be? Am I going to turn my life into like, okay, I'm staying at home, but I'm quietly resenting it, and I'm just going to treat it like a permanent weekend. I'm not going to really get dressed in the morning. I'm not going to do my hair. I'm not going to bother making the bed because who cares? I'm just going to get into it later on, right? I'm just going to take it as easy as I possibly can because I'm on kind of like a perpetual summer vacation just with a bunch of kids that I have no choice but to take care of. That was one option. I could choose to look at it that way and live it that way. I'm not saying everybody does that. I'm just saying I knew for me, that's where I was at, where I was like, either I'm going to take a really easy, lazy road, or option number 2 was I'm going to actually apply myself to this motherhood thing. Instead of feeling sorry for myself, instead of putting like the bar so low, because nobody's there to stop me. I mean, my husband would really see this, maybe like my mom. I apply myself very much like it says in 3, that whatever I would do it as unto the Lord, and not as to men, but like Jesus' personal boss, and I'm serving him in raising these children with a spirit of excellence rather than a spirit of mediocrity. Basically, like how little can, like how low can I go? How little effort can I put into this and keep the kids alive and still sleep at night? That's what I was dealing with. I mean, that was you, but that was a fork in the road I hit early on. Thank God, by his grace, even though it wasn't like desirable to me, I knew ultimately it would be worth it on so many levels for me to choose option 2, right? Even though option 1 seemed sort of much easier, I knew that it was like a siren song. It was only going to bring ultimately ruin and resentment and shame and guilt. It just wasn't the road I was choosing to walk. So I chose to embrace motherhood the way I would have embraced a professional career. I knew that I had skills and talent and smarts. Every job I'd had before I was married, I quickly rose up in the ranks, got promoted or put in management within 6 months to a year. So I knew like I could rock it in a professional setting. However, I'm in this setting. This is the garden where I'm growing. This is where God has called me to serve, to raise these kids in this hour for such a time as this. These little kids are just starting to talk. And even though it's not particularly glamorous, even though my contemporary culture does not have a high regard for this at all, even though most of my friends are sending their kids off to school with joy and relief, I choose, instead of a choice between me, God, and with my husband's full, blessing, to embrace this full-time like a pro. And I'm going to bring all of my professional skills and I'm going to hone them as a mom because I wasn't prepared for motherhood. And I was like, well, then it's time to grow, Tara, and take this stuff seriously because this is real. This is live. Pregnant with number 4. These kids are counting on you. You're their only mom. Like, that's an assignment and a task from God with me with more than just a fertile womb. And I had to be like, yes, called me by his grace to welcome children as a blessing. Then it's up to him to supply more than just the kids, right? He's going to supply more than just fertility. He's going to supply mental, he's going to supply finances. He's going to supply the physical strength for every C-section I've had. All my children have been a C-section. Not a road I would have chosen, but it's the road I'm on. He would supply emotional growth that I didn't currently have and skill sets that I didn't currently possess. I was going to have to acquire in the fire, right? There was no more time to prepare. This was live. I had to gain a motherhood that I didn't have and start thinking past the next 20 minutes into that I was raising adults in the next generation. These are the people who are going to vote. These are the people who are going to raise up my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. I started to get a way bigger vision and a way bigger trust that changed everything. So has it always been easy to embrace the blessing of children with a professional mom mindset? No. It's going to be easy, right? But Jesus said his burden would be light. So he's going to supply all of my needs, emotional needs, the mental needs, physical needs. And that when I'm going through something tough, because I have gone through tough stuff, that he would meet me in that place and give me a grace in that moment, not in advance, but in that moment when I hit some of the hard stuff, which I'll talk about another time, some hard stuff that we walked through. I've trusted that he's going to sanctify me into more and more into Christ-likeness, mom. That this wasn't, that the children weren't in the way, but that this was the way that God was going to mature me and grow me and mold me more and more into the woman of God and redeemed me to be. And oh my goodness, things started to change after that. It just like flipping a switch, right? It's not like all of a sudden it was like, yeah, pro mom, I got it all figured out. But I began to learn and grow because I wasn't sitting around fundamentally feeling sorry for myself. And my sister remarked the other day, she's like, I've always admired what together mom you are, how your home is so well put together. You run that thing like with professional level. She's like, now I know, because I never told anybody this before. It was just a very private thing that happened, that just between me and God. I think my husband was aware of it, but like, why would I tell anybody else, right? I'm not like bragging. It was just something I was just like, this is happening. This is how I'm doing it. And I'm going to do it like a pro. I'm not going to get paid. I'm not going to get recognized, promotions, gold stickers, bonuses or getaways. I don't know what it's going to look like, but this I know. I will be doing it as unto the Lord, and he rewards me. He sees what's done in secret, for better, for worse. He sees what I'm really doing as a mom. And I share this to encourage you today, wherever you're at in your own motherhood journey, however many kids you have, whatever you're dealing with, struggling with your motherhood, it's possible that on some level you've got some messed up job, through your childhood, through your family, through culture. I mean, gets there and gets there. It's not so, and you're struggling with your motherhood. Part of that may be that you're just still wrestling with embracing the blessing of children. And I get it. This isn't to condemn you. There's a way. So if that's something you're like, I need to deal with this because it's inside and it's unfair to the kids. Mom's turning into a really scary mom at home. Cranky, resentful, bitter, all those other things. You're like, who is this? And this is not who I thought I would mom. If that's you, I've got a free guide on my website, terryleehills.com. I'll put a link in the comments after this. If you want to check it out. It's a Christian woman's guide to deal with fear. Because most of this stuff was rooted in fear. And when I dealt with that, like I said, then after that, it was just figuring out the logistics and dealing with my individual situation. So that's there to bless you. I've also got another free guide if you want to check it out. It's called My Top 10 Tips for Big Family Management. All these things I've developed over the years with my professional mom mindset. That's there to bless you. Check it out. Feel free. It was so good to meet with you today. My time is almost up. So Thank you for connecting with me. Hello, good morning. I am having some kind of Facebook connectivity issue. I'm going to try to get on my phone one more time into my own group so I can see who's actually saying hi. Oh, morning, Jen. So good to see you. Glad you're catching this day. Yeah, it's so true, right? Jen saying that her friends can be like this too. And I get it. I don't expect them to fill my cup. I don't expect them to get it or give me props or any of that stuff because I'm probably looking in the wrong place. Honestly, even in the church, you may not find a ton of support for being a full-time stay-at-home mom. If that's, you have a heart to do that, you have a heart to homeschool as well, if that's something you're doing, you may not find a ton of support. People are just like, well, have fun with that. I would never do it. So I just choose to have a heart of grace and not sit in judgment over them. At the same time, walk with dignity as a woman of God and not let other people tear me down and let God primarily define my worth. So I hope that blesses you today. We're catching this later. God bless you. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you